Christ is ultimate authority. He taught the truth, but he wasn't going to remain on earth forever. So what did he do? Let's look at Mark chapter 3, verse 13 and 19. Mark chapter 3, verse 13 through 19. So what was Christ going to do to make sure the truth remains? Because he's going to leave.
He appointed the apostles.
Who's he going to appoint? Okay, we won't read the passages, but this is where he appoints 12 apostles. You know, why did he appoint these guys?
So they
Carry it on.
So he can teach them the truth and they can carry it on. Absolutely.
So I didn't know, I was just reading about that today, and I didn't realize that Peter meant God in the Old Testament.
It did?
That's what I,
No,
that's what I read.
No.
That rock.
Rock, but the word was not, Peter was not used
It was never
as a
used.
name.
That word was never used.
Because it meant God. That's what I read
Okay.
from,
Could be.
Okay.
that's what I read.
Bring it. Bring it.
Okay, so he chose 12 apostles. And now the last sentence of that paragraph.
These men followed Jesus and were instructed in what it took to be disciples of the Lord and were witnesses of what Christ did.
All right, let's look up Acts chapter 1, verse 8. So he chose 12 apostles. He taught them the truth. And now what does it tell us about these apostles?
But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, and you will be with me, my witness in Jerusalem, throughout Judea and Samaria.
So what were these apostles going to be for Christ? Witnesses. They were going to go out there and now and witness to the people. They witnessed what Christ taught, what he did, and they were going to tell other people about it. Just trivia question. What happened to these apostles? How did every one of them die except one? They were martyred. Do you realize that? At this point in time, in Acts chapter 1, verse 8, how many apostles were there?
11.
11. Why 11? I thought he chose 12.
Because Judas died.
Remember Judas?
Yeah.
What he did?
Yeah.
He betrayed Christ and he committed suicide. So at this point in time, there were 11 apostles. Out of these 11, how many of them were martyred?
11.
No, 10.
10.
No. 10.
10.
But you said they were all martyred but one, didn't you?
Yeah.
So it might be all
So 10 of them were martyred and one wasn't. Do you know the one who wasn't martyred? John. The Apostle John.
And Judas wasn't martyred.
Yeah, really. He committed suicide.
Do we have proof that John wrote Book of Revelations, or how does the church, or what is it?
Apologist! How do you know Matthew wrote Matthew?
Church said so.
Authoritative source.
How do you know who wrote it? It says the gospel according to Matthew. How do you know he wrote it? How do you know Mark wrote Mark?
Don't they know from history?
They did from history, when they had their council.
This is an answer, Catholics. You should know this.
Yeah.
This really emphasizes a point in our church. How do we know Mark wrote Mark? Huh?
The magisterium.
Tradition.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Tradition. The spoken tradition. Nowhere in the Gospel of Mark does it say, I, Mark, a follower of Peter, wrote this Gospel under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit for you. It doesn't say it. But we say it, according to Mark, tradition tells us.
Well, there are some books in the New Testament that somebody else besides the person whose name on the top probably wrote it.
Parts of it, sure.
And then I was thinking that, but just confirm that Mark and Matthew did write their own gospel. That's confirmed.
When we say according to Matthew, you know, the primary... Actually, who's the primary author of a gospel?
Holy Spirit.
The Holy Spirit. The secondary author is, you know, the person who penned it, You know, he might have had some other input, but the person who penned it is the one who gets the credit, you know.
Basically, they compiled on some of these things.
Some of them they put together from sources, yeah. I won't get into that, yeah.
But we've known this for, you know, very much at the beginning. So it's not, I mean, oral tradition, I mean, wasn't it written down, well, 400, the 4th century it was written down. Who wrote
4th
it?
century, it says the gospel according to Matthew.
Yeah, so we've
That
known.
doesn't say anywhere in the gospel, this gospel
No,
is
not in the
written by
gospel, but we know,
It's through tradition.
yeah.
through tradition.
So- But it was written down at that point.
Somewhere, maybe.
People could know.
But after orally being carried on for years. Tradition. Okay,
So,
so the apostles, taught by Christ the truth, they're to be witnesses to spread the good news. The third paragraph. Could somebody read the first 3 sentences?
These men were ready to go out and teach what they learned from Christ. However, just as yeast sitting on a store shelf is useless, it has to be mixed with water in order to grow and be effective. Jesus promised that although he would leave them soon, he would give them the power to be his representative.
Let's take a look at John 16, verse 7 through 15. Jesus taught the apostles everything that he wanted them to know about the truth. What would happen if we learn? You know, we sit in this class all these months, right? And you hear all this stuff. Can you remember everything that I've said over all these months? Obviously not. No. I can't even remember what I taught you, okay? But Christ made a promise to his apostles. Now let's read this passage, verses 7 through 15.
But I tell you the truth, it is better for you that I go. For if I do not go, the advocate will not come to you. But if I go, I will send him to you. And when he comes, he will convict the world in regard to sin and righteousness and condemnation. Sin, because they do not believe in me. Righteousness, because I am going to the Father, and you will no longer see me. Condemnation, because the ruler of this world has been condemned. I have much more to tell you, but you cannot bear it now. But when he comes, the Spirit of truth, he will guide you to all truth.
What was that again? Say that verse again.
But when he comes, the Spirit of truth, he will guide you to all truth.
Okay.
He will not speak on his own, but he will speak what he hears and will declare to you the things that are coming. He will glorify me because he will take from what is mine and declare it to you. Everything that the Father has is mine. For this reason I told you that he will take from what is mine and declare it to you.
What does Christ promise into these apostles? He taught them the truth. But what does he promise them?
The Holy Spirit.
To send the Holy Spirit upon them. And what's the Holy Spirit going to do?
the Spirit of truth.
Enlighten them.
Guide them in the truth. All right, so he's going to send the Holy Spirit to help these apostles out so they can remember and teach all the truth.
You know, there's a lot of tough stuff in that, what we just read there.
Yeah.
Pretty subversive to.
Yep, there's a lot there. Okay.
Because the ruler of this world has been condemned.
Christ, who's condemned?
The ruler.
And who's
of this
that?
world.
Christ. You know, in his, remember Christ, he's fully God and fully man. You know, the human part now is condemned. What Cal's bringing up here. So he needs somehow, some way for his truth to continue because he's condemned, because he's going to be put to death.